In SABC News Senior reporter Mzwandile Mbeje, who's covering the story for us, and he joins us now live from Parktown, Johannesburg. Mzwai, very good morning to you. What a day, and that was only day one. The former president saying he has been vilified and alleged to be the king of corrupt people. And, well, he started, as he put it, by, connecting the dots over a decade or so that talks to why he is at the commission currently. And the common refrain from Mr. Zuma's testimony was this character assassination plan.
Oh yes, Blaine, very good morning to you. Of course, that's all the evidence that we were listening to yesterday before he could be questioned by the legal team. He then set the stage by reading out, or rather by narrating his own understanding of the circumstances that have led to the kind of a situation that we find ourselves in as a country. But perhaps, Blaine, before I could get into the substance of the issues that will be dealt with today at the Commission, maybe I must just indicate to you, because you know that yesterday, by this time, it was such a hive of activity with supporters coming up here to come and show the support, and of course security matching that. It was quite very tight. I mean, you can also see even today that the security is still very tight. The police are here, the PPU, the Presidential Protection Unit, and of course Metro, and the security of the Commission. So to ensure that security is not breached in one way, in what way whatsoever. But I must add again, Blaine, to say it would appear that we will only see perhaps the bigger crowds on Friday. Remember, they were granted permission to be here yesterday and on Friday. So I don't expect any large crowds here during these few days that are coming, which days we have been told have been set aside for the former president. We don't know whether we'll go through until Friday, but of course, if indeed we have to go through until Friday, that permit to grant the crowds, so that one is well documented. But coming back to the question that you posed, Blaine, about the circumstances of the commission of the former president coming here, it was quite interesting, very explosive. The former minister really, Ngwakora Matloti, being named as a spy, I think that has somehow taken most of the headlines. And the question is, Blaine, if he continues to be on the stand and perhaps he continues to feel there are certain individuals who are hell-bent on besmirching his name as he alleges, so who are other people that will be named? He told everyone to say he's got a lot of information, obviously his position as former intelligence chief of the ANC, and of course his position as former president of the country. So at some point, most of the information was easily accessible to him. So when the proceedings get underway here today, he will be quizzed about his issues relating to Themba Maseko. Remember, Themba Maseko said he got a call from him to say if he could help the Guptas. So there were, I think, about 9 witnesses that were mentioned yesterday that he would be quizzed on. Among them, Barbara Hogan, former minister, Fekimento, former member of parliament, and Ngwakora Matlodi himself, and Fikile Mbalula. So those are some of the people really who came here and gave evidence and mentioned his name in one way or the other. So we expect that once the commission sits and continues with the work, so the issue around Themba Maseko will be dealt with, and then once they are concluded, then we'll move on to the next witness who did implicate the former president, Blaine.
And Mzwai, there has been some response from at least Ngwakora Matlodi, who said that he's willing to take a lie detector test to prove his innocence.
Of course, as soon as the news broke that former president had mentioned Ngwakora Matlodi as a spy who was recruited in Lesotho, Mr. Ramatloti spoke to various platforms, basically denying these claims, saying essentially the former president was lying, and then going as far as to say he would like this commission to perhaps give both of them an opportunity to take a lie detector test, so to determine who is not telling the truth between them. Of course, for now, he has said he is not approaching any court. He's not taking any legal action to perhaps try and disprove those claims. So as the days progress, Blaine would actually sit and wait and see the next action from other individuals as well, if though there are those who feel perhaps they need to take an action.
You know, what I found very interesting in Mzwai is the question that Mr. Zuma raised, asking, you know, why do you call it state capture? Because when we talk about state capture, we talk about the judiciary, the parliament, as well as the executive. So I guess he's trying to say that this is an exaggeration.
You know, Blaine, he basically laid the context before he gave his testimony, saying where this thing comes from as far as he's concerned, speaking about that grand plot which started back in the 1990s with 3 agencies involved, 2 of them foreign and 1 local. So given all that context, Blaine, that he laid, and then he is basically saying now we have a commission that is investigating the issues around what is called state capture. And then he went to then explain what constitutes the state. I mean, in South Africa, you know, when you talk about the state, you basically are referring to parliament, to the national executive, and of course the judiciary. I think his feeling was, if you are saying the state is captured, are you referring to these 3 arms of state? So if all of them are then captured, it means everyone is captured. So in his view, he felt perhaps this should have been called the Commission on Allegations of Fraud and Corruption, because that's what it's investigating. But to say it's a state capture perhaps is an exaggeration. I think that's what he said. But of course, you know, this flow from the recommendations of the former public protector, then Thulima Donzela, who basically, Blaine, was asked to investigate the allegations of corruption, and particularly the issues of the cabinet appointments. Perhaps people will remember that the reason we have this commission, Blaine, is because there were complaints from several individuals to say there are these claims that some of the appointments that are being made, the cabinet appointments, are actually influenced from outside. And you and I know that the appointment of ministers is in a prerogative of the president. So if the president, who is constitutionally empowered to make these appointments, is influenced by individuals who are not authorized to do that, it's obviously a serious violation. So that is why then there were these complaints from people like Musmaimane and of course and some unnamed sources to say, can this thing be investigated? Remember, Fikimento had said she had been offered a position, and the former Deputy Finance Minister, Jonas as well, had said the Guptas offered him the finance position. So based on all of that, so this commission had to take effect, because Thulima Donzela had a very limited time, and then he did not have sufficient resources, so you needed a bigger platform. That is why this commission came about, Blaine.
And I remember when he was asked that question by Advocate Paul Prestorius, he threw a question back at the advocate, saying that why should they be involved or be concerned about ministers? Mzwai, Mr. Zuma's legal counsel, Advocate Sikakane, telling the commission chair yesterday morning that he hopes Mr. Zuma will be protected from himself, and that those he is going to be mentioning will be treated fairly because they don't know he is about to out them. So I guess it's an indication of things to come.
Yes. that was as a result, Blaine, of the procedures of the commission having not been followed. If I have made a statement, Blaine, to come to the commission, and then I mention you, so you ought to have a right to know about that, and you should be informed about it. So in this instance, the former president was invited, and of course we now know that the judge is saying it was his decision. He was invited to come and respond to some of the claims that people were making here. So, which basically means, so he did not have to go through all the normal processes. So what the legal team was saying was that in the event, in his presentation, he mentions the names of the people, the legal team would not be able to really help in that regard, because the normal procedures were not followed. So it was essentially that aspect the legal team was raising, to say we would have preferred to have the questions and then we know how to respond. If we have to throw it back at certain individuals, and then those individuals are afforded the opportunity. So that is what they were speaking about there, Blaine.
And so as we wrap things up, I just want to get a sense of what's it like being inside that room this time around. I remember the Deputy Chief Justice telling the people that are gathered there inside the room that there's no clapping. You know, please refrain from clapping. What's it like being there this time?
Well, for the first time, Blaine, you saw a almost packed room where ordinary members of the public had also come in there. And of course, not only them, but people who are known to be vocal supporters of the former president. So, as obviously he was there saying things that they liked, I guess they felt perhaps it made sense for them to applaud. But then remember, this may be a commission, but it's still being run by a judge. And I think the judge will still want to be very much in control. So you got the sense that from those who support the former president, they were very impressed by what he was saying. So it was the sign for them to show that they really liked what he was saying. But of course, the judge would say, so you can't do that here. Remember, we are running a commission, so they had to behave like everyone else was behaving. But inside, as you are saying, the atmosphere, I think, is getting a bit relaxed. I mean, when it started, it was a bit tense, I guess, because there was an air of expectation. What is it that he was going to say? Now that he has given us an indication what he could possibly say or do in terms of his evidence. So I guess it does give a bit of relaxation for people to say, well, if people continue to say things that are not nice about him, he will simply fire back. Another interesting day ahead. Thank you very much indeed, my friend. We'll try to catch up with you a little later on. That was Mzwandile Mbeje live for us in Parktown, Johannesburg.